It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome in to Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and this week we're talking about knowing what fees you're being charged through your retirement advisors. That's exactly why we've gathered this team of professionals today here. The panel includes myself, Matt Goolsby, financial advisor and founding partner of Market Advisory Group, Susan Curtis, tax advisor with Market Tax Services, Doug Schauder, estate planning attorney from Eidelman Law Firm, and Kim Sixkiller, life and long-term care advisor from Market Advisory Group. Welcome in, everyone. We've got a full show to talk about a lot of things this week, so I'm going to give the setup here. This is a new couple that I met with recently. They're both retiring here in July this summer. Don, he's age 64 and works at Spirit Aerosystems. Sue, she's a year younger than him, 63, and they've done really well saving for retirement. They have over $2.5 million in assets between their 401ks, some savings accounts, and of course, their other retirement accounts. They tell me in their first appointment with me, their first going through this process we have, the first part is this get to know you. They tell me that they're very conservative. And we're taking a look at where their accounts are. They've got about $1.5 million over in their 401ks, left with their employers that they're getting ready to retire from here in this upcoming July. They've recently discovered, though, that they have $1 million. Well, they didn't discover they have $1 million. That'd be a big surprise. They discovered what they were being charged on the other part of their investments, the $1 million they had over at a big investment firm. And they discovered that these fees that they're paying are around 1%. And Don said to me, man, I really feel like that's expensive. And so we wanted to dig through that. And again, they're currently paying about 1% or so, they thought. They keep their taxes and legal stuff. They do that with a couple of other people, but they're not working together as a team. And as they're approaching retirement, they're thinking it might be better to work together as this team. But they want to build this plan as a holistic plan and all in one place and all of it together. Their house is paid off with no debt. Don, he makes pretty good income, $160,000 a year. And Sue, she does as well, makes about $80,000 a year. Talking about their needs in retirement and figuring out how much income are they going to need to keep running the household or live the lifestyle they want when they retire. They're going to need around $10,000 plus a month, or almost $140,000 a year minimum for living expenses. And that sounds like a big number, but we think we can make all that work together. Sue asked if she'll be able to roll over her retirement plan since she's actually going to still keep working. And we talked about, yes, most retirement plans will actually allow you to roll it over before retirement. Once you've turned past, or once you've reached the age of 59 and a half, most 401k companies or 401k employer plans will allow you to roll that out, keep contributing to it while the employer keeps matching, and then you pick the investments, or you kind of start to pick your plans besides just the limited selection of investments or tools that you have inside that work plan there, your work retirement plan, the 401k. So you can call them and have that rolled out. So we talked about how that's an option for her, but they also wanted to have a discussion on should they start taking their Social Security now or should they wait? And so we talked about what their benefits would be, and they had some really good benefits for Social Security. Don's current benefit would be around $3,000 a month, and Sue's would be around $2,300 a month. So based on just Social Security alone, their income is going to be about $60,000 a year, not quite that $140,000 a year they're needing. So then we had to talk about where it came from the retirement accounts and how we would supplement that Social Security income on a monthly basis. But let's turn to health insurance, shall we? That kind of gives the setup for what's going on there. Sue, she has health insurance through her work, and she actually has some unique plans there where she's going to get covered. Both of them will be covered through age 65, and then they'll transition to Medicare. But I'm looking down the table here at Kim. You know a little bit about Medicare, but that's not really what we're going to talk about here, because there's more than just the Medicare component to your health care coverage in retirement, correct?
Absolutely. So Medicare came up just because what was unique is Sue and Dawn had never had anyone really talk to them about, once we retire, what's going to happen with our health care. So luckily, we do know that Sue has them covered until age 65. And then once it's time, we'll bring in market Medicare advisors to have that discussion with them about, all right, transitioning to that health care plan. But more importantly, Sue and Dawn have a history of a family member who has been in long-term care, right? They've needed some assisted facilities, and they want the ability to stay in their home if possible. So we were able to dig in and really look at what is available for them to have that conservative model that they really want, but ensure that they can stay in their home and not eat away at that asset planning.
And so one of the things that was chief amongst Sue's concerns is she's familiar with another situation where that couple, again, another situation, they got to stay in their house and had care come to their house. That was a really chief concern for Sue, and that's something that's very easily done, right? I mean, I say easily done. It's something we can address as far as a concern for her, correct?
It's absolutely easy to address if we plan ahead, right? So one of the things that we're fortunate to look at for Sue and Dawn is, because they've got a great retirement package kind of started, we were looking at it and saying, okay, how do we make sure that you have access to in-home care? We don't want them to get into a situation where they're pigeonholed into having to be in a facility to get access. There's so many things that have confinement requirements. And so we really wanted to look at something and say, okay, you have pretty decent health now. How do we make sure that they have access to those finances, whether they stay at home or go into assisted living? So looking at their plans and saying, all right, what needs do you have? Your home is paid off. Do we want to look at something that gives you a little more coverage now, or do we want to be able to take some money and make your money work harder and guarantee some of that money is around if you never use it, right? Keep that cost of insurance low and make sure we're not just using this like car insurance and paying monthly and throwing it away if we never use it. So
just another way that we help address the risks, the different risks that can be out there in retirement. And it's not just financial or investment risk. It could be maybe financial risk as far as a hit to your nest egg or a hit to your savings if you do have that long-term care need. And thanks for helping them address those issues, and as we're working forward there. And of course, then back to Social Security. When do you plan to turn on your Social Security? Do you think you'll need maybe long-term care at any point? I'm sure you hope not, but the statistics say you probably will. These are just a couple of the questions that you need to think about. If you don't have this team or a team of advisors that you can go through all the different risks that could be in your situation, what could you be missing? To find out, all it takes is a 15-minute introductory phone call with one of our advisors. To set up that 15-minute phone call, you can call 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-REPORT. Or you can check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in a future episode. In the next segment of Eye on Retirement, we take a look at Dawn and Sue's estate plan. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. In the last segment, we were talking about Dawn and Sue. That's a couple I met with. They watch this show, and I always enjoy meeting you guys that watch this show. We appreciate you guys doing that. We talked about their finances and when they wanted to turn on their Social Security before turning on their healthcare situation, because again, they were going to be covered under that work plan until they both turned 65. After we got that squared away, it naturally led into their estate plan, because that is another area of risk you have out there. If you don't have those things lined up correctly, it could cost you or your heirs thousands of dollars in unnecessary expenses and sometimes even taxes. We've got Doug Schauder from Eidelman Law Firm. And Doug, can you go into how we helped Dawn and Sue with their estate concerns, or maybe the risks they had there?
Sure. Well, and at this point, when I first met with them, Dawn and Sue did not have any estate plan in place at all. So they just kind of came in with the idea of, well, we need to get a will and get that taken care of. But one of the big issues with a will is all a will really does is cover assets that are in probate. And we try to keep folks out of going through probate, avoid the time that it takes to go through probate, avoid the cost that it takes. So we were looking at, well, let's take a little bit more of a look at where you are today, where you're going to be down the road, and what's the best situation for you. Now with Don and Sue, one of the biggest issues is that with the amount of assets that they've accumulated at this point, they're probably in a position where not only are they going to save the assets, but they're probably going to be growing their assets over the next 20 or 30 years, however long they're retired.
Only if I'm doing my job correctly,
well,
right?
We're going to hope that you're able to do that and the markets cooperate.
That's fair enough. The markets do have to cooperate.
So they're in a situation, though, most likely where they're going to be growing their assets from $2.5 million today to a number quite a bit bigger than that down the road. There's also the issue of they have talked about what are they going to do as far as charity, what are they going to do about giving to their kids, so that they're trying to determine what's the best vehicle to do that. Well, they have a lot of assets that they're going to be probably keeping and drawing down from their retirement account, and that money will go from being in a protected account for their taxes to being in a taxable account. Well, taxable accounts and homes and things like that are assets that are important to keep in a trust to, in part, avoid that probate process, but also that they have it there to make the distributions a lot easier. So that's one of the advantages that a trust puts together for them. And with their idea of charitable giving is they can determine over time if that number, they may start with a smaller amount, but increase that over time. It's very easy within a trust to change the amount of how they're giving it, how their distribution goes, what percentage goes to the kids versus what percentage may go to a trust. And the trust also gives a lot of ease of administration for the kids that they're when they're ultimately taking over, that they can have everything kind of all in one place with that.
Well, a trust avoids probate, generally speaking, and normally when people come in and ask for that will, we have to probe on that and kind of figure out what's going on in their situation to really figure out what best addresses those concerns and ultimately what delivers the outcomes they want. And they certainly wanted to avoid probate because that's an expensive mistake that a lot of people don't avoid.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where the costs of probate not only involve just the cost of administering it, but you may have tax consequences and that type of issue. I think we were just talking earlier about a client we've just recently started meeting with, where this individual had an uncle who passed away, and the uncle had not named any beneficiary on their retirement account. And when that happened, now this asset has become part of the probate process. So there's not only the probate fees, which are typically several percent of the asset, but because of the difference in tax rules, is most likely these folks are going to have a compressed time to pull their money out of the retirement taxes. So they're going to have to draw more and probably at a higher tax rate. So.
Yeah. And you said the magic word, tax. We're going to take a break here and we're going to go back over and talk about some tax consequences. But just like bundling your car and home and auto, you can save money when you bundle your investments, taxes, and estate planning and healthcare advisors. Together in one place allows not only for you to get the benefit of having that conversation around the same table, but it also allows us, your professionals, helping you in your journey to collaborate and all be around that same table together. But it could also save you money working together as this team, and that's why we do it. So not only can it save you money, but it can also save you from running into issues, and that's exactly what we do here at Market Advisory Group. All it takes is a 15-minute introductory phone call to learn if we're the right team for you. So go ahead and set up that 15-minute phone call right now, and you can dial 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or you can visit our website at eyeonretirement.com. Well, stay tuned. In the next segment of eyeonretirement.com, we finish up with Don and Sue's story with, of course, the tax components. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Now, Don and Sue have their finances, their health care, and now their estate plan all in one place. So what's missing? Well, the taxes. And a lot of people do forget those. The tax components, they're serious considerations you should have before taking that withdrawal, starting that pension. Whatever that taxable event is, you need the tax advice before you do it, because after you do it, you oftentimes can't put the tax genie back in the bottle, like Joshua, one of our CPAs, will often say. Now, Susan, Sue and Don have someone who does their taxes, but when I was asking them about their situation, they weren't getting any tax planning. And now most people don't even know what tax planning is, but tell us a little bit about what was going on in Don and Sue's situation.
So they were going to someone who was doing their taxes. It was very transactional. Bring in your documents, prepare their return, pick it up, pay your balance. But they were tired of getting, like they pick up their taxes and they owed a lot of money. And, they're like, why? Like nobody ever sat down and explained it to them. Nobody ever sat down with them and went over their income and adjustments to see, are you withholding enough? So with them being on a fixed income, they need to know what their tax bill is going to look like. So I was able to bring them in and sit down with them and walk them through a projection and actually tell them what they were going to owe at the end of the year.
And then, of course, they have, they actually know two people that actually use us as a company. And so they were kind of referred to us and again, watched the TV show. Mm-hmm. But they heard from their friends that they were getting that tax planning at the end of the year, where you're right. We walk them through and say, are your withholdings enough? Do you have any tax opportunities where you're not using enough of your tax brackets, or can you do any Roth conversions? Does it make sense to? Because oftentimes when you're said that they have someone that's preparing their taxes, people get their tax return, and like you said, oftentimes there's no explanation to it. It's just, you owe. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you mean I owe? Is there anything I can do next year to not owe? And they don't get that. They don't get that advisory service. I think that was a good way to describe it. You said it's transactional. They
Yes.
just drop it off. It's done. Pay us the money. Here's what you owe. Here's your refund. Not anything to see how they can look forward and how they can maximize the tax code for their situation.
Right, exactly. And that, and that's why it's so important that, we have the team that we have, because you're able to get the entire picture, and, you can bring in the attorney and the financial advisor, and to make sure that we are capturing everything and to the best of our ability.
Well, in Don and Sue's situation, both of them are working. Both of them have withholdings from their paychecks. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to switch to taking withdrawals to some of their retirement accounts, some from their trust account that Doug will set them up, and some from Social Security. Mm-hmm. And all those have different withholding ramifications to them, or maybe taxable implications to them. And you guys at Market Tax Services make sure that my clients are withholding enough so they don't get those nasty tax surprises.
Exactly, absolutely.
And sometimes even Joshua works his magic and he can make it where they're not paying any taxes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to put that pressure on them. But taxes, speaking of taxes, we're going to tilt back to Doug real quick. You mentioned a story we were talking about on the radio show this week about how I think it's a client of Jonathan's, right?
Yes.
One of the advisors in Kansas City. And he has someone that came to one of his in-person tax classes, or estate planning class, one or the other. And that couple, or that gentleman, I think his name's Greg. Greg is set to inherit $1.7 million from his uncle's IRA, because his uncle's will says it goes to Greg. But the problem is it has to be probated. And you talked about how probate can cost you percentages. Well, you guys tell me over at the law firm, it's anywhere from 3 to 6%.
Yeah.
So that's $30,000 to $60,000 like that gone, right? And just probate expenses on that 1.7 million. But then the tax components on, if there's not a named beneficiary on the retirement plan, have I got all this right so far? Mm-hmm. Again, this is the screwy rules. The Secure Act says it has to be out in 5 years, not 10 years, right?
Yeah, so what you have happening is you've got a situation where that $1.7 million is going to be much, much smaller when it actually gets to our client here, because there's going to be the attorney fees coming off of the top of that, and the cost of the probate administration, the window to take that money out instead of 10 years for an individual is going to be compressed to a 5-year window, which with that amount of money means even if they take it out evenly, it's probably going to be $300,000 to $400,000 each year. Well, that's going to be at a very high tax level because the estate is taxed not like an individual, it's taxed like a trust or something like that. So most of that is going to be coming out probably at a 30+% tax rate. So that $1.7 million may wind up being more like $800,000 when he actually gets it.
And that's all because someone had a will and they didn't have their beneficiaries right on their retirement accounts. And then that will, if you're going to get that asset to the family member or the individual you want it to, it's got to be taken through the probate process. And it's just going to get eaten up in fees and taxes. And a lot of people, I think, will think estate planning is expensive, but I would argue in that example right there, we learned that no estate plan or not the right estate plan is more expensive than any kind of estate plan.
Yeah, and the uncle may have thought he was doing the right thing by having the will and having that put up, but just a simple change in the beneficiary would have made a significant difference. Now, he's still going to owe some taxes on it, even if he's taking them out, but he's got a longer window to take it out on. He's going to be, if they're married, they probably have a much higher amount that he can take out every year without getting into the highest tax brackets. So there's a big difference with that. And it's all just a matter of kind of reviewing your plan, going through and making sure that everything is set up properly. Just putting a will together is not really enough. That's maybe a starting point, but we like to use the will as the backstop of if everything else doesn't work out as planned, you've still got the will just in case. Well,
you don't want to be relying on that will if you don't have to. And there's so many things here. There's the tax considerations, the estate planning considerations, the healthcare, and of course the financial. And there's just too many rules to keep abreast of all of them at once. It helps to have a whole team that communicates with each other, working for you to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. At Market Advisor Group, that's exactly what we do. And all it takes to find out if we're the right team for you is a 15-minute phone call. To set up that 15-minute phone call with Market Advisory Group, just to see if we're that right fit again for you, reach out right now at 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or do so at our website, retirementhelp.com. You can also search for Eye on Retirement on YouTube wherever we upload the past, or where we upload the past episodes for you to watch on demand. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Matt Goolsby, along here with the entire panel, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.